right here, right now. It is Chain Holden Isaacs versus David Reitenbach on Levia, and we're starting in with a big ol' smash with big tree. Not smash with little tree, not smash with sapling.
You just smash with the big tree.
There's the Dread Scythe, though. We were talking about that, who found it, and where is that Chain player? Dread Scythe is going to have built-in arcane damage to it, and that is an unstoppable force.
I'll be honest, I think Dread Scythe is one of the most powerful cards you can pick in Monarch Limited. I have one draft and sealed on the back of just Dread Scythe alone, because if you can manage your deck in a way that you can just attack with Dread Scythe over and over, maybe back that up with some go-agains here or there, dude, it's a house. And there's like, we can see it on the board. There's no arcane barrier, so that's just like free damage coming in every single turn if you can keep it up. But speaking of damage, Levia coming in with a nice little chunk here.
Howl from Beyond into Adrenaline Rush. This is going to be a nice little stacked up attack here, and Holden Isaacs is just going to go ahead and toss in front of this here. And I think the strategy here is, like you mentioned, you've got a free lane for arcane damage. Holden Isaacs came to Las Vegas and probably got luckier than everybody in this entire establishment by finding this Dread Scythe as late as he did, because I believe that Dread Scythe got passed around about 3 or 4 times before it finally landed on him, and he knows where he needs to go here, which is find that arcane damage lane, exploit it, and go there. Protect the life total. Here's a Stony Wutenhog. The big boss hog has shown up again.
Yeah, and as Holden here, you can kind of do exactly what he did before. You can do hey, here's my 3 block, and I'll keep a blue, and I'll just Dread Scythe you, right? And that's a totally viable strategy that wins games in this Monarch Limited.
The problem there is, like we saw in the Dig and White matches, you run out of cards quick if you're blocking over the top here. You might have a lot of health at the end, but if you don't have cards, you can't do squat. And that Dread Scythe, sure, it connects, but he will have to eventually play to deal damage, and he's coming in now with a Seeds of Agony into a Bounding Demigon.
Yeah, say, you know what? Here's some more arcane damage. If I'm gonna not attack with the scythe, I'm still gonna throw some arcane damage your way. So, just throwing out this unpreventable damage turn after turn is definitely a viable strategy here. I can't help but wonder how many cards that Holden decided to put in his deck. If he's like, hey, you know what, maybe I'm just going to go for this kind of a pseudo-fatigue strategy where I'm just going to chip him down with this arcane damage. I can definitely see that being a situation here. And I also wouldn't be surprised if we see very few chain activations and, very few soul shackles, because that just kind of runs as the antithesis to your strategy here.
I think this is one of those rare occasions where chain might be the one trying to, I don't want to say fatigue, but play ultra defensively.
Yeah.
We don't know necessarily what Holden Isaacs has drafted here, but we can be certain that we have seen, as you and I were watching the drafts go by, lots of Vexing Malices, Arcanic Crackles, lots of built-in, baked-in arcane damage, like we mentioned, is unblockable. So even with the Dread Scythe here, you have other options. You could do something like go Soul Shackle, Arcanic Crackle, that rhymed, which was amazing, into Dread Scythe. So you can just pop that off, and if they block the physical, you're still sneaking in with 2 sneaky arcane damage.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if that's kind of his game plan here, especially against Levia, where Levia might end up dumping a bunch of cards with Blood Debt into her banishment, and could take some incidental damage because of that. And as David, as a Levia player, you kind of have to think about that, right? You see this chain play, and you're like, okay, this is what they're doing. They're just going to be throwing out a lot of arcane damage, and I need to perhaps play a little bit more conservatively with those banishments. Or you can do the opposite, and you can just kind of go, I don't want to say whole hog, but, kind of just lean really, really into it and try to just, push the damage through. So far, Holden's done a great job of just blocking it out.
Oh, and I like this too. He's sending the Arcanic Crackle later, and like we mentioned, there was definitely an opportunity to go Shackle, Crackle, Pop, and it's not working out here. He's going to pitch those instead to send the Soul Shackle, which has the physical with the baked-in arcane damage, which it's just a free pass. It's the John Cena of damage. You can't see it.
Yeah, in this situation, it's like you attack with your weapon and then just pitch those cards. They go on the bottom. You're basically doing the same thing, but you're also preserving your deck. And when you want to play the long game like this, that's exactly what you want to do. And these like 6 attack cards like this good old Smash with Big Tree, if he's got like a couple 3 blocks in his hand, I think he's very happy just to be like, all right, block 6, and I'm just gonna scythe you some more. Just kind of like slowly chip you down, like drain you out, like 15 incidental points of like 1 arcane damage apiece.
I think what Holden might also be hoping for here is if he finds this magic hand of, where it is worthwhile to create the Soul Shackle to have this bigger, wider attack.
Yeah.
He might bite, but he seems very committed to what you said. Block 6, send the Dread Scythe and be happy about it, as he's already looking to commit 2 cards here. But you don't want to mill yourself off of the Soul Shackles. So
Yep.
I think you're just content doing what he's doing right now. And as you can see, he's also loading up the bottom of the deck. So should he choose to actually start rocking those Soul Shackles, what does he have coming up? Well, it's a Riftbind with a Seeds of Agony just holding hands at the bottom of the deck there.
Yeah, he's just really, really setting up for the late game, right? He's definitely has a game plan, and he's definitely executing on it. And it's at least so far working. I think it's definitely an interesting thing to think about, and definitely something that we should pay attention to on a turn where he's able to maybe leverage his life, keep more hands, and then go for a really, really wide turn. Because I could see something where we can toss like a Vexing Malice plus something, or even his Dread Scythe, just to push a lot of guaranteed damage here.
Hooves of the Shadow Beast being tossed in front of them. They've got Battle Worn, so they will be able to block, which is a great thing, finding free value off of your equipment. Equipment in this set, there's some very, very highly coveted pieces, of which Halo of Illumination is definitely one of them. The other one that Holden Isaacs has is the Aether Ironweave. It blocks, generates resources.
Yeah, he basically has like a really explosive turn just in the back pocket with his equipment there. He's got the Stubby Hammers as well as the Aether Ironweave. So they together, they're just like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a turn where I just pump up all of my attacks and also get some free resources on top of that.
This might be a turn where Holden Isaacs finally caught a break here, as it's only going to be a Ravenous Meat-Axe. He whiffed on the discard, so he can just give 1 here, and finally there, there it goes. Belittle first. He didn't commit it. This is going to connect with another Arcanic Crackle, so these are all of those Runeblade cards with the baked-in Arcane. We might actually see a Shackle Crackle pop.
Shackle Crackle Pop. And this here is what I'd like to call like your kind of fuse, right? This is your kind of fuse Belittle, right? Revealing the card in your hand and going to go tutor for a Minnowism. It looks like that was, I would guess, likely a blue Minnowism. I can't quite tell.
It looks red to me. So here, a double Minnowism.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Big time. We came to play. This is a 9-spot attack off of the Arcanic Crackle, and it's going to come in with an arcane damage, finally being able to return fire.
These are those big turns that we were talking about, right? He can just kind of like sit back, poke on in with the arcane damage here or there until he's like, hey, here's a 9 Crackle, right? Plus the 1 arcane. You still got the 1 arcane as well. So yeah, David just has to commit a ton of resources to this to not get chunked down to a really, really bad position. I mean, like, this is pretty obvious, but you don't want to go as low as you can, because every single point of arcane damage, it's like basically guaranteed, right? Like you get 1 arcane damage every single turn. It's almost like getting Kadachi locked, right? But worse, because you can't prevent it. It's just going to get there.
It's gross.
It's inevitability.
It is gross. And we've heard of no Fuse Lexi. Have we heard of no Shackle Chain? And that's what we're looking at here. Seeds of Agony, another source of arcane damage, is going to be paired up.
More arcane damage.
More arcane damage. This is an avenue that you have to exploit if you find it. And I know that we're talking not necessarily just about finding that home run of a Dread Scythe, but all the cards that Holden Isaacs has selected, like the Arcanic Crackles, the Seeds of Agonies, and we haven't seen a Vexing Malice or anything,
nope,
which pockets 2 baked in. But look what he has accomplished off of merely arcane damage.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, especially if you look at the life totals here. All right, Flake, if you're David, what do you got to do to get back into this? It feels like dire straits, right? I'll be honest.
It is a difficult scenario here because you are on a ticking time bomb, especially at 8. You know that you're not long for this world when your opponent is just has that massive scythe, that he just absolutely racks off of the Grim Reaper, and you know that your time is coming too. So what can you do? I think what you need to do is you have some time. You just need to hopefully find a hand that can blow your opponent out of the water, that almost forces them to block or puts them in a position where they ate a chunk, and then you could start playing the game. Then you force your opponent into maybe having to shackle in order to maintain pressure against you so that they start milling themselves. But without that 4-card haymaker hand, what can you do? You are under the thumb of that scythe.
Yeah, and, as David, you still have to keep the pressure up because you can't let Chain have a big hand, right? If he has a big hand, he can just possibly end the game. Chain always has the ability to just give his Shadow or Runeblade stuff go again. We haven't seen it yet because he's playing the long game, but he still has that ability, and he has the Stubby Hammers, he has the Aether Ironweave, and he has that commanding life total that he can definitely use as a resource.
All right, new plan here. I mean, now Isaacs can basically continue the pressure. We saw a lot of blocking from Chain and a lot of just sneaking in with the arcane damage. Now, if you pressure your opponent, now they have Blood Debt to take care of. So they're going to be exceptionally selective of what cards they keep, because if they don't banish, they're going to get burnt down from that attrition. So here's another Dread Scythe. You're going to put your opponent down to 6 with some physical damage attached to it.
Yep, it's just one of those turns where he's really happy to just throw his hand in, keep a blue, and then come in with the Dread Scythe. And this is like the real power of Dread Scythe, right? And this is, I've mentioned this before, why I've been able to win drafts and sealed with just Dread Scythe, because you just block and then you come in with Dread Scythe. It's a incredibly powerful card. Not one if you're a player who plays a lot of Constructed, but if you know Monarch Limited, it is a powerhouse.
Oh, exceptional powerhouse. So you could take a look right now as they have been injected with NOS. They are going at turbo speeds here as we are wrapping up on this round. We're going to throw in front of here, maybe block some of the damage. Again, David Reitenbach knows that time is limited here, not just on the clock, but on that life total as well. Dread Scythe has been slowly eroding away at that life total. Blood Debt is one concern, but damn it, that arcane damage is unstoppable.
I swear, Dread Scythe is like the Reaper just knocking at the door, right? Just kind of knock, knock, knock. You gonna open the door? Like every turn, he's just like, knock, knock.
You say no, but he slides the arcane under the door
yeah,
anyways.
Right.
I know you're here.
Hey, here's the Seeds of Agony, right? So we do have a decently big attack coming in from Levia here. I'm not 100% sure what color this Howl is, but, this is kind of what you need to do. You still have to threaten Chain's hand. You can't let him have a big hand. Otherwise, he's going to do a lot more than just Dread Scythe.
We're not rolling dice. I don't think there's a D17 that we can rely on. So finds it, though, but there goes the gloves. Sure, no problem. Levia, I believe, was satisfied there. So no Blood Debt, but we're still throwing a big attack, and we're going to get another action point out of this, too.
Is 8, right? And, Chain's bottom is 3-block, pitch a blue, Dread Scythe. And so these are the kind of attacks that Levi needs to, just stay in the game, right? You just have to pressure Chain's hand. And Chain, at this point, can also just use his life as a resource. And he's been very, very conservative with that. With that, nice, cushiony 10-point life difference, just being able to be like, what, hey, I'm happy with blocking, but maybe in the future I can take a little bit of damage and then come back on a turn where my hand is good enough to close out the game.
The picture of Chain looking like he's at a table and his opponent just caught the inside straight on the river, and he absolutely above himself, beside himself. But at this rate, he is in firm command of this matchup here, as a Ravenous Meat Axe for 3 is not exactly the most threatening follow-up to an 8 with the extra action point, but you're chipping away. This is how you got to get back into it. You got to cobble together big damage outputs while that Dread Scythe just erodes your life total away. Look at this again. It's just like, yeah, cool, no problem. Let's do it again.
Here's my scythe. Knock, knock, knock. Levi's at 4 now, and 4 is starting to get very scary. It's starting to get to the range where stuff like the Vexing Malice are really, really. It's like half your health, right? That 2 arcane from the Vexing Malice is half your health. So, every other incidental point of arcane damage from this point on is going to make the game just that much quicker. And, TikTok, right? Levi is on the back foot here, and
he caught the pound for a pound out of the hand too to turn off the blood debt. So that's a nice rip.
I mean, with 3 blood debt, that is very relevant, like for sure. And that's another axis that Levi has to play on here. They have to also not die to their own blood debt. Looks like Chain is very happy just to toss in a couple 3 blocks and Dread Scythe again.
And keep in mind, he has pitched those Arcanic Crackles over and over and over again, and he has not used the Soul Shackle. There might be a situation where he has Arcanic Crackle, a blue, goes Shackle Crackle into the Scythe, and ends the game. And we're approaching that vector here as Levia at 3. David Reitenbach has really, stared down the absolute heavy lifting that this Dread Scythe has done a valiant effort to stay relevant in this game, as Holden Isaacs has not created a single Soul Shackle, content to just block out and exploit this free pass that Arcane Damage is getting right now. 3 random banishes here. Looks like you found it, I believe.
I think so.
We missed it. I know that there was a non-attack action, 5 blood debt on the hook here.
Definitely.
Yeah, got it. There we go.
Yeah, definitely at least 2 extra blood debt. So now blood debt is actually just straight lethal. Here we have a...
That's a Dimensional Crossroads or something. It's
Perhaps it's a foil?
It was a foil. Wants to protect the investment.
Well, or just be like, as... what's the right way to put it? As competitive friendly as possible. If the card's curling a little bit, be as legit as the flattest possible version. Dimensional Crossroads is a pretty spicy card, to be honest, and can push a little bit of. Ooh,
we have a shackle, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so Dimensional Crossroads can push a little bit of arcane damage, but also we just have another. This is a very wide chain turn, basically, and this is a card that's gonna basically kind of like get a card back, and it looks like he's going to be choosing. I think he chose a Seeds of Agony. It's going to go on the bottom of his deck, and there you go. There you go. Blistering fast.